Hi everyone, thank you for coming out today. I'm John Spinard, Assistant Professor of Anthropology, and I'm first archaeologist in my department. I specialize in using digital technologies to investigate ancient Maya cave rituals. In this talk, I'm going to demonstrate how I've been using technology to continue my international research project in Belize during the last few years. Now in 2018, I began the first long-term investigation of a group of caverns in Belize, collectively known as the Rio Frio Caves. Now, beyond traditional archaeological investigations of them, a major focus of my research has been related to digital cultural heritage and preservation. In particular, we've been making digital 3D models of artifacts and areas in the caverns, but what I want to demonstrate today is the creation of immersive 360-degree virtual reality walking tours of the caverns. Before we move on, let's take a look at where the caves are. So here's Belize, and we zoom in. We see that the caves are located in west central Belize. They're about 11 miles from the border of Guatemala, and they're about 30 miles from the nearest towns today. Now, the Rio Frio Caves were first reported to archaeology in 1928 by archaeologist explorer Gregory Mason, who was on an expedition to Belize, sponsored by the Museum of the American Indian High Foundation in New York City, to collect ethnographic objects for their collections. During his trip, word reached him of unexplored and untouched archaeology caves deep in the jungle, and thinking of the potential boon for the museum, he decided to go check them out. Now, he spent about 2 weeks exploring and excavating them, but he didn't publish much on the expedition or its results. What little he did publish focused on his adventures and venting frustrations with local authorities at the expense of the archaeology. He did publish one focus study on the expedition, but it was really a little more than a pamphlet, as you can see here. Missing from it are maps of the caves and the contextual and locational information about where in the caves he recovered objects from. As you can see, there's a lot of photographs, but that's kind of a lot of what this publication is. Now, contextual information is vital to archaeology because it helps us make sense of the objects that we study. Where you find something is important to understanding how it was used. All he wrote about related to where he collected objects from were short descriptions of the areas. Without actually standing there to see them, though, they actually aren't very helpful. Now, with the walking tours what my team and I have created, I've actually been able to go back and revisit the caves digitally and do a close reading of his descriptions to find where he made his collections. So let's go ahead and take a look real quick. I will say that I did just get an Oculus headset a few weeks ago and have been able to visit these in virtual reality, and the experience is absolutely amazing. If anyone's interested, I have posted a longer tour of the caverns to my project website, which I'll bring up again at the end of the talk. But these are like a Google walking tour, street view tour. These are 360-degree panoramic photosphere tours. Okay? So you can look up above and down below. And just to give you an example of the size of this cave, notice this V-shaped rock right here. This is me and a team of Cal State San Marcos students who were there in 2019. You can see that this cave is absolutely enormous. It's actually one of the largest cave entrances in Belize, and it stands about 120 feet tall. And you can see the cliff entrance up here. This is a tree roots growing down from 150 feet up above. All right, so what we'll do real quick is I'll bring you through the cave, and then talk about how I've been able to reconstruct what Mason's done. All right, so this is the main entrance. If you hear static, that's actually an audio recording of the river flowing through here. Again, just to give you some sense of scale, this is me standing 6 foot tall here, looking at somebody up on this ledge across the cave, who is also about 6 feet tall. So what I've done here, just for sake of time, is I've gone through and, like I said, did a close reading of Mason's work, and so we can look at some of the descriptions he's written. He talks here at the entrance about he found a structure which he's calling an altar. Though he's uncertain to its use. It was 30 feet long, 9 feet wide, and 4 feet high, built out from the perpendicular wall of the cave and constructed of loose stones without mortar. Right? So what did he find there? Well, he excavated and actually found a bunch of jade objects like this right here, which suggests elite usage of this part of the cave. He talks about this area below the altar. Between the altar and the steep slope down to the river was a terrace, partially artificial, averaging 20 feet wide. This was littered with sherds of many kind. He's talking about broken pieces of ancient pottery. 4 to 8 inches below the surface were quantities of the shell of freshwater snails. 1 polychrome sherd, meaning multiple colors, and 3 sherds with embellishment in high relief were found here, as were a possible pottery coil and a flint core and a limestone ball, which may have been a sling stone, and a ball about 3 times as large. The best thing from the surface of this terrace, however, were several large fragments of 2 incensarios of the studded reddish sandyware type. Okay, so he published just a few of these objects here. These are what he calls sling stones. These are actually grinding stones, manos. Right. He has the polychrome piece right here, the 3 pieces with embellishments. And we know from other sites that these actually were incense burners, similar to this one here. This is another site in the, nearby, big site nearby in the region. It's very much likely those kinds of pots. And this is that spiked reddishware one that he's talking about. So what we can get here is an idea of how the cave was being used by seeing these places. Right? So up here we get the jade objects, suggesting royalty. And we can get an idea here of, you can see this, a massive audience would have been able to stay down here on this beach while somebody up above was performing a ritual. And we know that there is a lot of incense being burned, right? So you get an idea that there's a lot of smoke billowing out of here. Things were being burned, a lot of activity up here being seen. And perhaps people were standing here also on the beach, looking in, seeing the smoke gather and pour out here. All right. Well, that's been just some of the ways I've been able to use my digital archaeology to reconstruct the early archaeology of the Rio Frio caves. Thanks again for your attention, and thanks to everybody here. And again, if you're interested in digging into this tour a little bit deeper, you can check out the website here. And thank you.